I've broadcast on here before, and I'd like to carry on with my comments about what's going on in the world and the UK where I live. I live in Surrey, in England, UK. What's concerning me today is my views are obviously right-wing, but I think that the media, especially the left-wing media, has given the President of the United States, Donald Trump, a bad run. He was elected by the American people, and sometimes the media doesn't seem to acknowledge that happened. He's not a tin pot dictator who rules by fear. Lives in the most free country in the world, USA, and the American people elected him with the American system, which I think is a very fair system. Even though he didn't get the most votes, he actually got the most credits in as much that states voted for him, which I think is a way of ensuring that the two biggest states, California and New York, do not dictate to the American people who they should have as their president. So that's my opinion of that. At the moment in the UK, we have Theresa May. Also, she gets quite a bit of media stick, especially from the likes of the BBC, who are supposed to be neutral, and also from certain newspapers, which probably is more understandable because they are normally either of the right or the left. I can't think of any of them which are strictly neutral. And so that's the way it goes with opinions of political leaders. Conservative supporter myself, even though I did actually vote for Labour in the past and some of the other minor parties. But I think really to maintain a good country, we need to have a stable government. And I can't think how a Labour government, especially under Jeremy Corbyn, could cause stability. They seem to think that money grows on trees and they can use it for anything they like. And they would basically tax more wealthy people or even the less wealthy people, to the fact that the more wealthy people who have got the ability to do so would just leave the country. And we'd turn up to be a country like we were in the 70s, where we basically were struggling to get through because the power of the trade unions, for example, and also the fact that our manufacturers were making god-awful products, especially the car industry. I'd hate for this country to go back to those days again. Jeremy Corbyn is a sort of elderly hippie to my ideas. He may have very ideas which worthy, but at the same time, he doesn't seem to learn the lesson of what happened to this country in the 70s, particularly that we were going downhill very, very fast. But Thatcher, even though she was very unpopular to start with, to bring this country back onto its feet again. So I'm saying that I was a former member of a trade union anyway. In my younger days, I was a trade unionist, but I could see that the trade unions weren't really helping their own people. They were helping the union barons. They had quite a nice living out of it, and it helped the philosophy of these barons, because basically they mostly were socialist background, and they were the ones, to my mind, mainly responsible for the state in which this country got itself into during the 70 period. Another big beef of mine, obviously, which I've touched on before, is the BBC. But it's far from neutral. In fact, it's also has a left-wing spin about it. And it's got so politically correct, it's unbelievable now. You can see this by the fact that there are, in their reporters, etc., mainly Asian women or Asian men, but mainly Asian women who probably come from a private, well-educated background. I'm nothing against that. But what happened to the majority, vast majority white population? Having the odd one or two Asian broadcasters or reporters, but the BBC has gone completely over the top. And now a minority are now actually in charge of doing the broadcasting and the reporting, which seems really ridiculous to me, that an organisation which is supposed to be neutral has shown a lack of understanding of what a lot of people in this country, especially from a background like mine, it's made some brilliant programs in the past, but I just hardly ever watch it now, because nearly every one of its programs based on politically correct aspirations. They seem to cater for the minorities and not for the majority. And I can't say, oh, I'm not going to watch them. I'm not going to pay for them, because I can't do that. Pay license fee, which is another outdated institution. It's about time that maybe the BBC updated to modern views, television viewers, like Sky, for example, where if they want to watch it, then they have to buy maybe a box or a smart card and then pay a subscription that way. And for people like myself who don't believe in their policies or the way they're doing things, are not to pay a license fee. If we want to watch something, then yes, by all means, pay for it, like we would for watching Sky or BT or any of those other independent channels, but not have it forced onto us with their left-wing PC views, have to pay for things which we don't agree with. So that's another one of my beefs about the BBC, and I've always felt that way about them for quite a few years now. Another big problem I think that this country is having is obviously with our relationship with Europe. The majority of the people, by I think it was around 1.3 million, majority voted to come out of Europe, for this country to go its own way. But now I find that the Prime Minister, Theresa May, and some of her cohorts seem to be given into the pressure from the people in the EC, who seem to want to sway Britain to come back nearer to what it was before. To my mind, we voted out, so we should come out. And don't worry about the consequences, because this country has always been able to survive through adversity and hard times. You only need to look at the 2 world wars of the last century to see that. We don't give in, we don't back away, and we're quite steely in our attitude. I've always likened it to the British bulldog, and we are, a type of people that will not be bullied. We will have our say, and we respect other people's say, but don't let them try to bully us or tell us what to do, because we can make our own mind up on that. If we make mistakes, fair enough, it's our own fault, but we don't want to be persuaded by other people that what we do should follow what they want us to do. So as far as Europe goes, I'm a great supporter of Nigel Farage. I thought it was a bit of a pity that he resigned from UKIP, because at the moment UKIP seems to be in a bit of a mess with its leadership problems. And I think that the one leader which they could have had a better future was with Marie Waters, who's now left and set up her own party called For Britain. Yes, and her policies are seen by some as being, they also, to my mind, seem to be common sense. I mean, when does common sense come into it with politicians? Common sense rules over, to my mind, politically correctness. If something seems logical and best way to handle things, then why can't we as a nation do that? We have done that in the past. We built our wealth on common sense and have been very intelligent, well-educated engineers, professors, doctors, you name it, we've had them. Explorers, we've had them. And but we seem to lack in those type of people now, because they were given the freedom to develop their own ideas and our ways. They weren't held back by political correctness or institutions which said, oh, you can't do it that way, you have to do it this way. They were given the freedom to develop these things. And this is what made us a great country in the past and led to many other following the ideal ways in which we set. I think America is a good example of that. In many ways, America did follow the example of the British people and is now obviously the leader in technology, science, medicine, you name it, in the world. And I think the roots are coming from the fact that they are English speaking, had a British example to follow. So that's fair to them for doing that. Personally, I've been brought up in the Christian religion. My father followed the Jehovah's Witnesses when he was in his, I think, 30s. He followed what they preached to him at the time, thought it was the truth, and I think he was very disillusioned with religion at the time, especially the Christian religion. And these new people seemed to be a new light for him. Obviously, like being a new religion, they also had very friendly atmosphere. People looked after each other and looked out for themselves. And I was brought up, say, from about the age of 8 to this religious organisation. But when I reached my sort of mid to late teens, even though I followed it quite closely for a long time, I started to see there was various flaws in this religion. This eventually caused me to leave them. I moved out of my home area to get away because most of my companions at that time or associates with Jehovah's Witnesses, because you were not allowed to associate with other people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's what I did. I moved out of the area I was brought up into another part just outside London and went my own way. Worked for Ford Motor Company for a few years and one or two other companies, and eventually worked for the Met Police for a little while. And then when I was outsourced from that, worked for the company which took over that particular side of things. So I'm now 69. I'm retired. I retired last year at 68, taking a small pension and the state pension. And I have downsized my property, so I'm now living in a new flat with my wife and daughter. So really, that's in a nutshell my life story. I've always tried to be friendly with other people, though, as I said, sometimes I think other people have not always been friendly with me because they don't really understand my ideas or thoughts. I've been terminated a racist, a right-wing, so-and-so, but I just think I just speak common sense and like others people to think that way as well, especially young people, because it took a lot of thought and pondering for me to come out of that religion and to go my own way. And certainly I had lonely spells doing that. But I must, say to all young people, no matter what religion you're brought up in, think about it and look into science, look into what's going on in the world. Don't just follow it because you were brought up and your parents have that religion. Make up your own mind. You're an individual. You've got an intelligent organ, your brain, to understand these things. So I urge you, if you're thinking about changing your lifestyle, to think these things over. It's not easy, I know. And sometimes you might leave relationships with friends or family doing it, but at least you'll be true to yourself. And that's the main thing, I think. Anyway, I'll come off now. I've had my brief, and I'll welcome any comments or any views anyone has to say, because I'm always open to learn new things. Bye for now.